Voting, as far as I'm concerned, all roads lead to voting. Our quality of life and everything that our lives touch, our hands touch, is a result of voting.
That's former Georgia State Representative Karen Bennett, a respected public servant, healthcare professional, and pastor. As voters head to the polls during an important election season, Representative Bennett joins us to discuss why voting remains one of the most powerful tools available to citizens and communities. We will also learn about her new initiative, the Alliance for Civic Engagement, ACE, an organization dedicated to helping churches, community groups, and civic organizations build effective voter education, voter registration, and voter mobilization programs. From increasing turnout to strengthening community influence, ACE is working to ensure that every voice is heard and every vote counts. In addition, we will examine the current challenges facing voters, including redistricting, voter engagement, and the future of civic participation in Georgia and beyond. If you ever wondered whether your vote really matters, this conversation is for you. Stay tuned as we talk with Karen Bennett about voting, civic engagement, and how communities can transform their future one vote at a time. I'm Marben Bland, and this is my podcast. Karen Bennett, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
All right. Well, let's get into it. We are in voting season right now. We're in early voting right now for the June 16th runoff as we record this podcast. And you have stood up a really interesting organization that is going to, I believe, play a major role in trying to get folks to vote. Let's talk about it.
Well, thank you. Trying to get folks to vote now and in the future. Voting, as far as I'm concerned, all roads lead to voting. Our quality of life and everything that our lives touch, our hands touch, is a result of voting.
And tell me about the organization that you're running. What does it do? Give us the name of it.
ACE. ACE is an acronym for Alliance for Civic Engagement, and it is intended to work with faith-based organizations, community organizations, civic organizations, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, anything, to help them develop their social action program and infrastructure so that it's from beginning to end. It's from how we engage, from voting registration, how important voters' education is, as well as voting mobilization. One without the other does not yield us an increase in voter turnout. We need it all. We need it all. Evidence shows that we need it all for voter turnout.
So walk me through an engagement, let's say with a church. Let's say you're working with my church or churches out there. Walk me through how that works.
Well, we would come in and do an interview assessment with the leader of the church, preferably the pastor or whoever the pastor designates as the social action committee chair. We would also perhaps take a series of polls, evaluations or assessments to find out what percentage of your church are registered voters, what percentage of your church actually get out and vote. We would even do an assessment about what the congregation or community understands about voting, why voting is important. Do they know where to find their voting information? Whether or not they are still on the voting rolls, where they vote, and etc. So we would do a comprehensive assessment so that we would be able to determine where that organization is in terms of voting readiness. And then we would find out, well, what are your goals? The end goal is increase in voter turnout. So then we look at the surrounding community and we determine from a data perspective, if that organization wishes to increase voter turnout at any particular precinct or in any particular community or organization, so that we can then go back and track that over a period of time. So we think that ACE Alliance for Civic Engagement is definitely needed in the community to help strengthen our community's voice.
That's fascinating. I'm going to dive into weeds a little bit with you then, okay? So let's say you're engaging our church and you did those steps. And let's say our goal is this. Number one, that we want 100% of our members voting, and we find out that we're at 98%. What interventions do you do first with the congregation, and then I'm going to talk about the precinct?
We would find out, first of all, why that 2% is not voting. Mm-hmm. It's so specific because, again, it's evidence-based. So evidence shows us that certain processes impact one's ability or interest in voting. So if you've got a 2% membership, what are the barriers? Is it transportation? Is it understanding? Is it medical condition? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to consider all of that.
Okay, great. So again, I'm going to paint the scenario. So we find out that the 2% who are not voting, they're sick and shut in. It's a medical issue. You prescribe a prescription that can help that 2% actually vote, and now we're at 100%. Now we want to take it to the precinct level, that the churches within a precinct and our members are predominantly within a precinct. And let's say that we determine that voting right now in that particular precinct is, let's say, in the 80 percentile. And naturally, we want to get it up to 90 to 100%. Then what interventions can you give us to now attack that problem to get that up to 90 to 100% within our precinct?
It's part of a playbook. It's you could look at it independently like that, as such as that, but when we go back, the evidence shows that it's not just getting people to go to the polls and vote, or it's not just getting them to vote by absentee. When we backtrack and we go back, we find out whether there was voting apathy. Did someone get upset because the last person that they supported didn't win? What is the reason for that deficit? And then we have to address, we meet people where they are, if that makes sense. We have to meet you where you are. Now, let's say you 100% of your local church, the precinct is operating at an 80% voter turnout, and then we would look at the community and see where the collaborations are. Where are the collaborations? Are there other churches within that geographical area that we can collaborate with? Are there other community organizations that may actually begin to do some canvassing or may start doing some robocalls, texting? Evidence shows that voters respond better to person-to-person contact. So we would have to examine and look at all of that, assess all of that, and then based on where the church's resources are, capacity-wise, then the church, in addition with the consultants, will select some interventions, and we will try that at that next election. However, because the church already has a playbook and some infrastructure, then for the next election, because elections happen all the time, every year, whether it's local or federal, and we want to encourage our voting turnout to be consistent across all elections.
Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? I'm Marben Bland, pastor of the Greater Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Athens, Georgia, with a Living the Word moment. When Sarah heard God's promise that she would have a son in her old age, she laughed. The promise seemed impossible, yet God responded with a question that still challenges us today. Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? God's promises are not limited by our circumstances, resources, or timelines. What He has spoken, He's able to do. When life presents obstacles, believers are called to trust His word more than they can see. God's promises invites us to believe boldly, pray confidently, and depend completely on Him. The God who promises is still able, and He never fails. How does an organization engage you? How do we bring you in? How do we make that initial step?
Well, I have contact information. My website, my email is ACE, the number 4, GOTV at gmail.com. That's one way. The office number is 470-709-7933. And then, of course, we will be in the community making our services known. And then when we find those people who are able and interested, we will come in and do a complimentary consultation and then build the program from there. There are certain building blocks that we have, and we'd like to know that our offering, our program is unique and will meet the needs of each individual organization.
And we'll put all of that information, all that contact information that you just mentioned. We'll make sure all of that's in the show notes so that people will have that and can come out and contact you. Now, I'm also interested, this is such a worthwhile thing. How did you start it?
Well, I think how did I start the business?
Yeah.
Or how did I get interested in politics?
Okay, tell you what, we'll go all the way back. Let's do a little origin story here. How did you get interested in politics?
I believe it's in my DNA. My mother and father were both community workers. My mother worked polls for years. Remember, the Voting Rights Act started in 1965. So their presence and advocacy in the community extended way back. My father was a labor person, AFL, CIO, local labor union. I, as a little girl, used to type his letters on a typewriter, a manual typewriter. And at school, my parents were always, particularly my father was more vocal and outgoing than my mom when it came to community involvement. He would be at the school. I mean, I'm talking about K through 12 school and high school. I'm not talking about involved in college. So my family has been involved. I've got 2 siblings, 2 brothers, and they have been actively engaged. When we went to school, my parents went to school. I carried that understanding and idea. So when my kids came along, I have 2 children. When they went to school, I went to school. Because what we found out, and it's sad to say, when parents are involved, the kids get a little different attention.
Absolutely. All right. So that's your origin story in terms of being interested in politics. When did you first run for an office?
Well, let me back up. My first time I ran for office was in 2012. However, there was community activity going on even before that. I was engaged in leadership, the CAB Neighborhood Leadership Institute, and professionally, I'm a physical therapist. And so I got engaged in billing issues and advocacy. And I would go down to the Capitol and I would testify before the committee as to why children with special needs Medicaid rates needed to be decent enough that they could recruit and get therapists and providers. The same with doctors, okay? And so just by going down, I guess it just piqued my interest one day, and a friend asked me, said, "Oh, you would be good." That's why it matters that we are encouraging to other people. She said, "You would be good. Do you ever think about running for office?" And so at that time, I came home and I discussed it with my family. And at that time, my husband, who had worked in political campaigns, he said, "Well, I think you should work in someone's campaign to get a better feel for what it is like." So that particular year, I don't remember what year it was, so I passed on running for office that year, and I took the advice, and I worked in another representative's campaign. And so when the opportunity came again, and it was an open seat, I received a phone call again. "Karen, do you know anybody interested in running for the State House of Representatives in District so-and-so?" I said, "Well, could that somebody be me?" She said, "That you would be perfect." And this was 2 weeks before the end of qualifying, right? This was 2 weeks before qualifying. So they had a group who met with me. We met at breakfast. They talked to me about what it would require. They even offered some financial support so that I could pay my qualifying fees, and the rest is history. That first election was it was 6 weeks. I campaigned in 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a campaign team, a campaign manager. Remember, my family had already been working in politics and campaigning, so we worked ourselves off, since this is a family show.
Right. Okay.
We worked ourselves off. And there were 6 of us in that race. And I like to say this because I don't want to discourage anyone. I want to be an encouraging voice at all times.
Mm-hmm.
There were 6 of us in that race, and people would constantly say, well, because it's hard to raise money when you are entering into the political arena. So they said, well, let's see, you're going to be in a runoff. There's too many of you in that race. You're going to be in a runoff. And I will say, praise God, that I won 60%. 60%. You only need 50% plus.
Wow. So you won without a runoff.
We won without a runoff, and that was in 2012 was the election.
Right. Wow.
In 2013, I took my oath of office, and in 2025, I retired.
Okay, terrific. So I want to get back to the organization and tell me about the origins of that. What led you to start this organization?
Well, serving in the legislature, I really understand how policy impacts our life. Public policy, and the only people who make public policy are elected officials. And so elected officials are elected by a constituent's vote. And so right now, I'll offer to say that in my lifetime, in my maybe adult lifetime, where I was really understanding what was going on in my environment and responsible for taking care of myself and my family, I have never witnessed such hard times and people having such hardships as what is going on now and since the last administration. And actually being on the legislative side, I understand health care. I understand funding for health care. I understand Medicaid expansion and what that would do. As a matter of fact, I was elected, and when the Affordable Care Act first came out, and my community service was going around to churches and having workshops and signing people up for the Affordable Care Act. I understand that. I understand SNAP benefits. I understand how property taxes and state taxes and federal taxes impact our ability and our quality of life. There are a lot of things that I understand now by serving as an elected official. And so my passion is to make sure that our community has a voice and that our community understands the importance of voting. You've heard people say, well, my vote doesn't matter or my vote doesn't count. Every vote matters and every vote counts, especially when elections are lost by 1,500 votes. On local levels, municipal elections can be lost by 300 votes. I think I had a colleague last time in the Senate who lost by 12 votes.
Wow.
So every vote matters, and eventually with the collective vote, if the collective vote is the majority vote, and you are in that majority vote, then more than likely you're going to elect someone who shares your values and represents you.
Yes.
So that's why, that's my passion, is a fighting fire inside of me. However, my pastoral care tells me we have to be gentle. And so the way that my contribution is, number one, an understanding of why voting matters, and my passion to get out and do something about it. We can't just talk about and complain about how bad things are without understanding that, yes, they are bad. Worse for some people, more than others. And and not bad for some. Let's just be realistic about it. But don't complain if you're not willing to do something about it. And everything 18-year-olds and older can do is vote. And who we put in office matters our quality of life, matters how much the gas is going to cost our gas. I'm more conscious of running out of gas now more so than ever. I try not to let my tank below half a tank because I can't afford to fill up a whole tank of gas. Going to the grocery store, it matters.
Yeah.
So we see these things, but it matters. And now a special session is coming in Georgia next week. I'm waiting for you to ask me about that.
Well, let's go ahead and get into it then. Yeah, right after the runoff on the 16th, on the 17th, the legislature goes into special session to redraw district maps. Now, my understanding is that we don't have to do that. The court did not order us to do that. In the Louisiana case, it was a court order that made the legislature go back to do that. But there's no compunction to do that. And even the session doing it in June, you certainly could have done it in December. So why the special session? Why now? What's the ramifications of it? And is it anything we can do about it?
Sure. Voter suppression. Senate Bill 202 that was enacted after Trump lost the election. So many voter suppression tactics are being enacted so that one party can regain power and the minority party has a harder chance to achieve that power. Redistricting at the state representative, state senate, U.S. Congress, House of Representatives, and the United States Senate. Redrawing those maps can foreseeably knock some people out. Okay? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, sure.
They can redraw the map such that some of our black congressmen, we call them congressmen, but it means congressmen and women.
Yeah, absolutely. For example,
they can draw people out of their district and out of the organization.
Yeah, for example, I've heard news reports that as many as 2 to 3 members of the delegation who happen to be black and Democrat could be at risk. For example, Sanford Bishop, who has long served in South Georgia, Lucy McBath, and the seat that the late David Scott had held are 3 targets that they may be looking at.
And that is correct. And diluting the representation of black people is the intention, with the goal of remaining in power and diluting the power of those leaders who represent minority communities.
But not only just those congressional seats are at risk, but also, as you all know, the talk is redrawing the lines of the House and the Senate, the Georgia House and the Georgia Senate, and then going even further, redrawing local lines of school boards and county commissions, and all of that has, as you indicated, a really horrible effect on voting strength for African Americans and other people of color. So we know the stakes. Then, what can we do in this special session? The Republicans have basically a supermajority. They've got a trifecta. They've got the governor, the lieutenant governor, the secretary of state, and the legislature. If they want to do it, they can do it, right?
Yes, they can do that. And the answer to your question is, so what? What can we do? We can vote like it's nobody's business, because although we may lose certain representations in the congressional lines and the state house, we still get one person, one vote. So it doesn't matter who my legislator is, I can still vote. And at the end of the day, it's the votes that are counted. Then we can come back with our voting strength and make some changes that are in the favor of all people, not just Republicans.
And that goes all the way back to the theory of the case for your organization, that if we as African Americans are voting at our highest percentile, if we're voting 90, 95% in all elections, no matter how the districts are drawn, particularly if you're trying to draw districts that are going to dilute minority voting stream, those voters got to go someplace. And those voters will go into districts that formerly really solidly Republican or solidly white. And so a block like that can tip the scales. And I suspect also you can't gerrymander the state either. Statewide offices. So if we're voting at those clips, statewide opportunities are there as well.
Well, you brought up something that just kind of hit me. You said that they cannot gerrymander state offices, right? But they can make them nonpartisan.
Yes.
Which we've seen what they said is unconstitutional. A recent bill that was passed that out of only 5 counties, the DAs and the Board of Commissioners are now nonpartisan.
Yeah, those are 5 metro Atlanta counties where those DAs are black women. Yes, and they're making them. They're trying to make them nonpartisan to make it more difficult for voters to understand which party the people who are running for these offices belong to, and what ideology they may speak to.
And that's why the education piece of ACE, Alliance for Civic Engagement, becomes even more important. Because when people know more, they tend to make different decisions. Yeah. And I would dare to say that nonpartisan thing really hurt this recent election with the judges. Miracle Rankin and Jen Jordan lost, I would dare to say, as a result of people either not knowing and being on a ballot where they were nonpartisan.
Yes. Well, in our remaining moments, I want you to once again kind of reiterate how we can get in touch with you. How can a church or an organization engage you in what you're doing?
Again, the information to reach me direct on my phone, 470-709-7933. I know that's old fashioned. My email address.
The phone works quite well.
And my email address is ACE, capital A, capital C, capital E, the number 4, GOTV@gmail.com. And my website is under reconstruction and will be up soon. So we can also contact you and you can refer them and put them in contact with me. Since
Absolutely.
You're coming into these homes on a weekly basis and they'll say, well, what's that lady? How can I reach the Get Out the Vote champion? That's what I will be known as. Chief Champion.
The Get Out the Vote champion. I love that. That is fantastic. Well, Karen Bennett, thank you so much once again for spending this time with us and having this conversation about voting.
Well, thank you for having me, and I would appreciate hearing from someone very soon who wants to make a difference in their organization and increase voter turnout in their community. Thank you.
All right. Well, until next time, blessings, peace, and love. The Marben Bland Podcast is a production of To The Point Theological Media. You can find more of our content on my website, marbenbland.com. Take care, and we'll talk to you next time.